Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. It must come as somewhat of a blow to Humza Yousaf that even the likes of Pete Wishart says his plans for independence just probably won't work. Of course, Humza Yousaf's plans is really only Nicola Sturgeon's old plan that she put on a shelf because she knew it was destined to fail. But he's taken it down, blown the dust off, called it a different name so it looks like he's come up with it, and presented it to the party. And of course the little lapdogs have lapped it up and clapped like seals balancing a ball on their nose. But it really won't work because it relies on one very important factor: that the British government go along with it. And of course there's no reason for Westminster to ever entertain any plan that he says is legitimate if even only a third of Scots vote for it. It's obviously not the settled will of Scotland. So we'll take a look at this piece to show Pete Wishart admitting what we all already know. It's a non-starter. Here goes. So, veteran SNP MP admits Skexit plan is unlikely to work in a crushing blow to Humza Yousaf. Well, we know this. Regular viewers know. We've discussed it. It's never going to work. How can you rely on something that requires the people in Westminster to say yes when you know the people in Westminster are never, ever going to say yes? Why would you even present this plan? And of course, the big folly, as we mentioned this before, but the big folly is if you have your election and you fail to win, then that is a ringing endorsement for unionism that your political opposition will beat you with a stick with it for the rest of days. It's a stupid plan, and that is why, of course, Nicola Sturgeon looked at it, considered it and said no, and put it on that shelf. Anyway, we're getting Perth and North Perthshire MP Pete Wishart cast doubt on the effectiveness of the First Minister's plan to break up the UK, as he conceded that Westminster will probably not be receptive to it. No minister, no government would willingly give up Scotland because they wouldn't want to be the government that broke up the UK. It's quite simple to see. At least, Pete Wishart is an awful person anyway. He's a terrible person who's got terrible politics. But to give him his due, even he can see it. Even someone like Pete Wishart recognises that the plan is an absolute failure. It's dead on arrival. It literally is. Anyway, the veteran SNP MP has admitted that his party's Skexit plan is unlikely to work in a further blow to Humza Yousaf's reinvigorating proposals to break up the UK. Pete Wishart cast doubt on whether the UK government would respond positively to them. It won't. There's never in a million years. The Tories just won't. I mean, after all, they are the Conservative and Unionist Party, so they won't. And Labour would get in, but, it also isn't going to give Scotland independence. Absolutely not. Anyway, the First Minister outlined his plan. It's not his plan, Nicola Sturgeon's plan, to use the next general election as an independence referendum, with a win meaning they can get a Skexit vote, or to push ahead with splitting up the union anyway, which would be sedition, which would carry a very long jail sentence. So if he does go ahead with it, I've got to salute him for his bravery. As long as he's prepared to spend 20 years in Wormwood scrubs, that's fine. Mr Wishart previously backed Nicola Sturgeon's de facto referendum idea to break up the UK if they receive more than 50% of the popular vote when Scotland next goes to the polls. However, he admitted that this was unlikely to work in an interview with the Holyrood magazine before his party's independence convention last week. So he was going into that convention last week saying it won't work, and then watching as Humza Yousaf stood on the stage in front of the 12 man and his dog and, gave out this utterly incomprehensible line about if we win the election, without defining what a win is, and claiming even if they were just the largest party, they could be a minority government. They could have as few as, say, 34% of the seats, and then consider that a de facto referendum win. 2/3 of Scots could vote against them, and they'd consider it a win. The man is so desperate and sad and innumerate. Anyway, he said the leaders at Westminster would probably not respect the Scottish Government's plans to reboot negotiations on the constitutional issue if the SNP wins the general election in Scotland. He added, we would need 50% plus one of all that vote. Would the UK accept it? Probably not. No, because it's not an actual referendum. You can call it what you like, but it's not a referendum. It has no standing in law, both domestic and international law. Nobody will recommend it. And if you try to push ahead, you're in deep trouble. He said, but we are not responsible for how the UK responds to these situations, which we've been saying from day one. And what we will have done is demonstrate to the UK and to the world that Scotland has decided to be an independent nation. And whether that elicits some sort of positive response from the UK, I don't know. But they might actually go, oh, all right then, you've done it, and things will move forward. In your dreams, it will never, ever happen. Mr. Wishart, who was elected in 2001, also said there was a chance that Scotland could be independent in the next 5 years. He's hopeful. I'll give him that. He's hopeful. But let me just tell you, there's no chance whatsoever. Zero chance at all that Scotland will be independent in the next 5 years. And of course, one of the first things it'll do as an independent country is immediately go and try and join the EU. And at that point, it will cease to be an independent country because all the laws it will have will be handed down to it without any course of constitutional or democratic process. It's a strange sort of independence, isn't it? Anyway, Mr. Yousaf set out his desired plan to party delegates in Dundee and sparked confusion within the nationalist movement. Oh, bless. Well, they're not too bright to begin with, are they? He said that if the SNP win a majority of seats, then he would push for either a referendum or negotiations to break up the UK. A majority of seats is not an absolute majority. Like I say, you could have just over a third of the seats and be the largest party. You'd have the majority of the seats, but it wouldn't be the majority of the vote. Anyway, this is very similar to Miss Sturgeon's idea, except it's easier to win. Asked how this was any different to the previous pledges from his party, he said it was because the first line of the manifesto would read, "Vote SNP for independence." His strategy was described as reinvigorating by some kiss-ass Nat MSP called Kookab Stewart. Oh, it's so marvellous and invigorating using second-hand policies that were rejected the first time because they were seen as absolute madness. Anyway, former Scottish Tory leader Annabel Goldie told Holyrood magazine that the intergovernmental relations between Scotland and the UK are so challenging because of the Scottish Government's constant desire for independence. Miss Goldie served as the Tory leader north of the border between 2005 and 2011, with her leadership seeing her party work with the then SNP leader Alex Salmond on multiple budgets. She said, there has to be mutual respect if people to engage. And there is no respect. I mean, the SNP do not respect anyone south of the border. They do not respect anyone in the rest of the UK. They do not respect Scots who are unionists, or even the ones sitting on the fence. Because the SNP, as far as they're concerned, unless you are a foaming at the mouth, wobbling-eyed, lunatic fringe SNP, cohort, then you don't exist. You're nothing. You're nobody. They don't want to know. Anyway, her comments followed a series of rows between the two governments over the UK government's decision to block legislation passed in the Scottish Parliament. Yes, wisely so, because it was against the majority of Scots' wishes. The former MSP also said she felt the Scottish Government has not found its time in power easy. Well, that's because they keep making problems for themselves, and worse, for everyone else. She says, although it craved more powers for the devolved Parliament and was given more powers, the exercise of these powers has been challenging and very problematic. It has. It's been given these things and it doesn't know how to deal with them. Yeah, peace, man. Peace out. But he's right, Fisher. It's very unusual and it comes out of my mouth. The words are weird coming out of my mouth. But Pete Wishart is right. It will fail. And I'm coming up. So there we are. That goes to show how awful Humza Yousaf's plan is. When even Pete people in his own party are saying, it's not going to work, it's failing before it starts, it's just rubbish. Pete Wishart, you're finally seeing the light. And maybe the likes, if the likes of Wishart are seeing it, maybe other people will see it. Will look at Humza Yousaf and go, oh bless, he's not very bright, is he? There's not much going on between those ears. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, do please hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and for heaven's sake, don't vote for the SNP. They are serial losers. Goodbye.